They say that whoever commits crimes against humanity could be locked up in a place where even thinking about escaping would cost him his life. Where escape is impossible except perhaps in the realm of dreams, but never in reality. So what's going on? Are we talking about the famous prison in the United States called Florence ADX or Alcatraz Island, which has been glorified in the world of cinema? Well, no. Today you and I will see with our own eyes the highest security prison in the whole world, a place where all the most dangerous criminals in the world are kept, starting with terrorists and ending with cannibals. In short, the place where the most evil people on Earth are kept. This is CECOT, an island located in the Indian Ocean 200 kilometers from the coast of Indonesia on the island of Rote. This is one of the most remote islands in the world. It is home to only 300 local residents who have nothing to do with the rest of the world and even less so with the prison located on their island. And yet this is not an ordinary colony, but one of the most protected places in the world. Just getting there is nearly impossible. By the way, before the prison appeared on the island, it was used by the military as a firing range. But the locals didn't seem to mind at all. They were just happy to get paid for their work. That was until they found out what kind of prisoners were being held on the island. From that moment on, no one wanted to go near the prison anymore, and everyone asked to be transferred as far away as possible from this godforsaken place. Understandably, as the prison held the worst criminals and the death penalty was still in effect in Indonesia. No one wanted to get close to the killers, cannibals, and terrorists. Prisoners were brought here under tight guard and then thrown into cells. No one knew what experiments the prison administration was conducting behind the high walls and barred windows. Even the employees of the prison itself were afraid to talk about what happened inside its perimeter. And to this day, no one knows what secrets are kept inside this prison. It's believed that those who commit crimes against humanity end up behind the bars of this prison. Serial killers, extremists, and cannibals who even prison walls can't contain. These are the people who can be locked up in Sweden. The thing is that the construction of this prison took into account all the mistakes that were made when building other prisons. For example, the infamous Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay, which housed many dangerous criminals like Al Capone, George Kelly Barnes, and many others. All of them were locked up on Alcatraz because they couldn't be kept anywhere else. At some point, the US government decided to turn the island into a prison and built a rather reliable structure. However, over time, it turned out that even these reinforced concrete walls and steel doors could hold some of the criminals. Several prisoners managed to escape, although they were later caught. This fact served as a signal to improve the construction of the prison and not make any mistakes. So in 1980, the prison administration was instructed to come up with a plan to make it impossible to escape from Alcantara. They studied everything in detail, every square meter of the territory, and came up with the most efficient way to ensure that nobody could escape from the island. But since Indonesia at that time had no money, they simply decided to build a new prison instead of remodeling the old one. Thus began the construction of one of the most secure prisons in the world. The walls of the prison are 2.5 meters thick. They are complemented by an additional 3-meter high wall with barbed wire along the entire perimeter. Also throughout the perimeter, infrared motion detectors are installed. The sensors are connected to powerful spotlights that turn on instantly if someone crosses the wrong line. There is also a siren that goes off simultaneously with the spotlight to alert guards of the attempted escape. But that's not all. Around the entire perimeter of the island, a moat was dug, filled with water and covered with crocodiles. The depth of the moat is such that even a helicopter can't take someone out of there. And the crocodiles are more than eager to eat not only the prisoner, but also anyone who decides to rescue him. By the way, those same crocodiles serve as a deterrent for ships trying to approach the island. Even though the Indonesian Navy owns a couple of boats that regularly check the waters around the island for suspicious objects, people don't often find the courage to even get close to the island. Many fishermen claim to have seen crocodiles in the water near the island, so they stay as far away as possible from the island, and it's strictly forbidden to come closer without special permission. In addition to the crocodiles, the prison also has guard towers at every corner with machine guns pointed in all directions. If a prisoner tries to escape, he won't make it far. He'll be finished off by one of the guards. The prison staff consists of regular police officers and special forces soldiers who are paid extra to work on the island. Most of them have families, but they don't live with them on the island. The officers live in a separate camp, which is guarded day and night. After all, even they're not immune to attacks from prisoners who are beyond redemption. Some officers claim that once they heard strange sounds coming from the cells and the next morning they found one of the prisoners missing. His body wasn't found until sunset. Guards believe that the prisoner was torn to pieces and eaten by other inmates. But let's go back to the prisoners themselves. How did they end up on such a remote island, and what exactly is the prison term for them? First of all, it's worth noting that all the prisoners are serving life sentences, but the exact term is determined by the court. So if a person commits a grave crime, he might get sentenced to life plus 20 years or even life plus 40 years. In this case, the judge believes that the criminal doesn't deserve to spend his last years on earth in a normal prison, and therefore, he sends him to Sisaket. Interestingly, there is no statute of limitations in Indonesia. So if a person committed a crime 30 years ago, he can still be sentenced to life imprisonment. But in this case, the convict will already be an old man and won't be able to do much harm to society. What's also interesting is that the prison in Seaton accepts not only criminals, but also mental patients who have committed crimes. But even this can't be considered a mitigating circumstance. Prisoners spend their days doing chores around the prison, growing vegetables and fruits, which they then eat themselves. Surprisingly, many prisoners volunteer to work in the prison kitchen, although in fact, the food is prepared according to the strictest standards and the menu is almost the same as in ordinary prisons. Breakfast usually consists of coffee, tea, bread, butter, and jam. Lunch consists of rice, fish or chicken, plus vegetables and fruit for dessert. Despite the seeming abundance of food, many prisoners die of hunger. Here, a power struggle has long been established between prisoners and wardens. Each of them wants to get more food for himself and secretly distributes it among fellow prisoners. But the supplies are limited and not everyone gets their share, especially since sometimes floods destroy the crops and food disappears. This leads to starvation of prisoners, but it's not as terrible as the torture that goes on within the prison walls. If you think that prison is just about sitting in a cell, you're very wrong. Torture exists everywhere, including Russia, Europe, America, Asia, and Africa. The only difference is that in Sedako, they're open and no one's hiding behind the veil of secrecy. The main form of torture is solitary confinement. Prisoners are kept in isolation from society for years. They're not allowed to see anyone, not even their relatives. This form of torture drives some prisoners crazy, turning them into completely different people. They start screaming, biting their own hands, and even biting the bars of the cell. When this happens, the guards take them out and put them in a special cell where they keep the most dangerous prisoners. Those unfortunate prisoners who find themselves in this situation never return to normal cells. Another common type of torture is beatings. The guards beat prisoners for any reason or no reason at all. One of the most severe punishments is being sewn up in a sack along with a dead rat. Believe it or not, this method is still used today. A dead rat is thrown into a sack along with a prisoner and the two are left to fend for themselves. No one knows what happens next, but every morning there's a terrible smell coming from the sack and the screams of the prisoners. Of course, you can imagine what happens to the prisoner. A dead rat quickly begins to decompose, emitting an unbearable stench. The bacteria contained in the decomposing body quickly penetrate the prisoner's skin and enter his bloodstream. Soon the prisoner falls victim to infection and dies. This method of execution is considered one of the most terrible and is used only for the most dangerous criminals. Today, Serengeti Prison is considered the most secure prison in the world. Over the 30 years of its existence, no one has been able to escape from it. Only a few people try to break out, but none of them succeed. In fact, no one really wants to escape from this prison because the conditions there aren't that bad after all. Yes, there are beatings and tortures, but even that becomes commonplace after a while. For prisoners, the main thing is to survive each day and not think about what awaits them outside the prison walls. Freedom for them means returning to the world of violence and poverty. While in prison, they're provided with all the necessities and no one bothers them, so why would they want to leave? In the end, the saying, "freedom is a bird that perches on a finger," doesn't work here. The prisoners don't want to be free.